Imagine that you come home from being out for maybe a few hours and your house is destroyed. The drapes are pulled down, the cushions are ripped up, there's maybe poop and pee everywhere. And you find your little dog just sitting amongst the fluff, looking sad because he knew he did something wrong, and your whole house is just destroyed. Maybe that's something that has happened to you, or maybe that's something you're worried about. But we're going to talk about ways to help pets with separation anxiety. So I'm glad you're here with us. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. This is our weekly coffee talk with the doc, and we're taking a little bit of a different turn today because I know a lot of you out there have gotten new puppies, adopted rescues during the whole pandemic, and now we're going back potentially to a more normal life. We're going back to work, and now we're worried about leaving our pets. And separation anxiety is a real common thing right now because our pets have been used to us being at home with them. So we're going to talk about that, what that is, what it means, what are some of the signs of separation anxiety, and of course, we're going to cover the holistic approach to this. We're going to talk about behavioral modification techniques that you need to start implementing now. And then we're also going to be talking about whole body health because it all plays a part. If your pet doesn't feel well, or if the food makes them feel crazy, then they're more likely to have separation anxiety and be a little bit crazy. So there's a lot of things that we can do from a holistic perspective. And when I say holistic, I'm talking about WH, like whole body approach. So mind, body, health, it's just like us. We're going to go into all of that. As always, type in your questions below. So if you're following us on Zoom, type in your questions in that Q&A box. If you're on Facebook and Instagram, type in your comments and we'll go through your questions as we go through this talk. So, all right, let's get started. What is separation anxiety? I know a lot of people have dealt with that. So our little Finn, when he was a puppy, he had separation anxiety. And what we actually did was when we brought him with us, we like took him to the river or something. Can't remember exactly what it was. It was definitely a long time ago. It was like 12 years ago. And we went in to get a sandwich and we had little Finn in the back of the truck and the windows were tinted and you could just see his little head like going. And you're like, oh my God, what is this dog doing? We're like, oh, it's fine. It's like a few more minutes. We'll get our sandwiches and go back to the car. We open the back of the door and there's this little puppy and there is fluff everywhere. He actually like destroyed the carpet. He destroyed the seat belts. Like everything was torn apart. Like that is separation anxiety. And what it can look like for you when you are at home, working from home, your dog is with you. Maybe they're following you in every room. Have you ever noticed that with your dog where they're following you? You get up, you go get coffee, you go to the next room, you go to the bathroom, like they are your shadow. And that is something that can clue you in that possibly this dog, maybe it's a new addition, might have some issues when you do have to go back to working full days at the office or wherever you work. So separation anxiety is usually dogs. Cats can also get that way too. Some cats are needy. They're not always, we see all the funny cat memes where cats want to be alone. Not every cat is that way. And so you might have a cat that might exhibit some of these behaviors, but they're usually overly attached or dependent on family members. It may be one family member, it could be everyone. But if you're noticing that your pet is very dependent on you, that's a sign that this could be separation anxiety. It may become, what happens is when you leave them, and it may only be for a minute, like baby Finn, or it could be if you leave for a few hours, but they become extremely anxious and they start showing distress behavior. So they start vocalizing, whining, they have destructive behavior. So like I mentioned, they rip down the curtains, they rip apart sofa cushions, the duvet cover. They're destructive usually, but not always. And so we have different variants of separation anxiety. It could be just mild. And we need to make sure we're noticing that so we can address it and help our pets. Because if we don't address those emotional anxieties and those emotional disorders, they can actually manifest later into physical conditions. So we don't want that to happen. So it's very important that we recognize some of these symptoms. What you may notice is when they're clued in on our leaving behaviors. So like you're getting ready for work, they know you're getting ready to leave them, you're putting on your shoes. So you might notice the dog's panting more, they're pacing more, they might be whining, they're right attached to you, they're getting really nervous and upset, they might start trembling. So these are signs you want to watch for with your dog. If you're noticing them, don't worry, we're going to give you some tips next on how to manage that. So first things first, what is the daily routine for your pet? Do they have a daily routine? If we don't have a daily routine, these dogs or cats that are very anxious and they're getting worked up over you leaving, they may not have that daily routine in place, and they need that. They need to have that routine that happens every single day. They know what's going to happen. They know they're in a safe place. And so we need to look at that. So they should know when it's time for attention. So if they're following you and you're like, it's okay, you'll be fine, we're reassuring them, we're actually reinforcing that behavior. We're reinforcing that anxious behavior by doing that, even though it's hard to potentially ignore that. And one of the things, what we can do is we can give them the times during creating that daily routine where they know it's time for exercise, it's time for feeding, it's time for play, it's time for training, it's time to go out and go to the bathroom. So we need to create that daily routine, setting up the times where they know every day is the same. And so that way they know, okay, they're leaving me, but it's okay. Like I have this routine in place. So make sure that you're scheduling those times for play and naps. One of the best ways to help a pet with separation anxiety is to schedule those times like right before you normally depart. So you're getting out some of that energy, you're creating a positive environment, you're playing with them, and then you're allowing them to take that nap afterwards, right? So we're getting that anxious energy out. We used to do this with Finn when he was still with us, when we would go to, right before we'd go to work, we'd go out in the yard and we would play fetch with him. And then he'd come back in and he would get a Kong that was filled with like some peanut butter for him to rest on his mat. So we need to look at, okay, next step, we have our daily routine where they know these things are going to happen. So it's creating a sense of security for them, sense of consistency. And then next, is their environment enriched? Like, are we just like letting them be and being like, you're going to be okay, but they're not? Or are we actually doing that regular play? Are we doing it also where at the end of play, are we initiating and helping to reinforce that it's now time to relax? So do you give them new toys or those stimulating toys? So like for Finn, the Kong with the treat that he really liked at the end of play when it's time for me to go to work. So that's something that you can definitely start integrating into that daily routine and create the consistency for these anxious dogs. So you can also do those feeding toys. So some dogs will use the feeding puzzles. Those are great options to engage their minds, that you can give that to them when you know you're going to be gone also. So when you're using feeding toys, you can either use that for their food. So that's their meal times, and you're putting it in like a treat or a puzzle that they have to figure out, and that's their meals. Or you can take away the amount of calories that you're giving, and that's an extra treat, but you're compensating for the calories. Remember, we don't want our pets to get overweight because we're giving them more treats to help them feel calm and have less separation anxiety. And then we do want to create a predictable protocol for rewards. So I mentioned at the start, we might have this dog that's following us because they have separation anxiety. So they're like our shadow dog. They follow us from room to room, and we're rewarding them when we're giving them attention. And it's really hard not to do that. And what you want to do is you want to teach them how to have an extended like sit or stay where they're calm, and then you're rewarding the calm behavior. That's really important because we end up reinforcing a lot of behaviors that we don't want in our pets, but they're confused because we made them confused. We ended up rewarding that behavior. So we can't blame them if they are more anxious because we just rewarded it. So what you want to be thinking about is, okay, what behaviors do I want to teach my dog? And what behaviors do I want to make sure I'm not rewarding and teaching my dog? So we need to think about that every time we're giving our pets attention. Is this beneficial for our pet? Or am I potentially rewarding a behavior that's going to potentially cause more issues down the road? One of, like, for example, common behavior I see that is rewarded is when you get home and your pet is so excited to see you. They're crazy. They're jumping up on you and like going absolutely bonkers. What do? We're like, oh my gosh, yes, I love seeing, oh my gosh, if everyone was so excited to see me, the world would be such a better place, right? If everyone acted like an excited puppy or excited dog to greet you. However, we are rewarding crazy behavior when we give them attention. What you want to do, which is really hard, is actually ignore that or say on your mat, and then they're calm. So we're teaching them those calm behaviors. Sit down, extended stay, and then what you do is you reward that behavior. So we want to ensure that we're not rewarding crazy, anxious, excitable behavior, or else we're going to have some other issues. So we need to be aware of that. So teaching those calm, settle, relaxation trainings, the mat. So this doesn't if you can right away start training your pet to be calm in like a crate. So crate training is really good. Some dogs, especially rescue dogs or dogs that aren't trained to a crate, this can be a little bit harder. So if you get a new puppy, crate train them immediately, because this is a safe place for them to go. You can feed them in it. It's like their little safe den, and it'll make life a lot easier for you as you train a puppy or a new dog. But if your dog doesn't like a crate, or they're not crate trained and you don't want to do a crate, you need to have a mat. This is the calm mat. This is the space that they go that is their own calming area. This could be in a separate room. This could be in the main room so they can still like watch you, but they're calm. And this is where they get their new toys, their treats. This is where you have them go. So if you walk in or you're leaving, this is part of your daily routine where you have them go on that mat, be calm, sit down. Once they're calm, that's when they get a really good treat or they get their favorite toy. So you're rewarding that calm behavior. So we want to make sure we're teaching them those, and that's the only way that they receive attention. So even like talking to them. So I find myself in the car, if like my pet is anxious, it's very easy to say, it's okay, like you'll be okay. We have to stop doing that. So even when we're home and like your dog is trembling, there's maybe noise phobias from thunderstorms, we need to see if this is where that mat is really important to help train them that that's the calming mat, and we're getting them on that. And that will definitely help and make a huge difference for your pet, especially when they're knowing the routine of you leaving, or you're going to start having a new routine of leaving if you are going back to work. So you want to start implementing this right now. Start training that calm, sit, extended stay, rewarding them, getting that mat and getting them used to it if they don't have that. So you can start doing these things now. If you're working from home, have that mat in a separate area and give them time to themselves so they get used to you not being there. It's a huge shock if they go from having you 24 hours a day and all the attention to you being gone for 8, 10, 12, whatever, how many hours you work in a shift. And it's asking for problems. If you have a slightly anxious dog, it can definitely lead to separation anxiety. So those are the biggest, like, easiest things that you can do. Creating a routine. And this is very simple. Like, some dogs, like separation anxiety, needs to be managed with medications while you're working on behavior modifications, because they're either going to harm themselves by like trying to chew their way out of the house. Like, some dogs will jump through windows. Other dogs will chew their way out of cages and harm themselves. So these dogs, this is for your separation anxiety that can be managed with these behavior modifications at home with yourself. Like, but some people need to use trainers, and some dogs do need conventional medications, maybe not in the long term, but to help calm them down. So daily routines. Are you environmental, like, is there environment enrichment through toys, treats, training, play, looking at what those routines are and what your dog needs. If you have a herding dog that has a lot of energy, we need to ensure that they're getting their energy out through walks and runs, and making sure that we're meeting those needs that that dog has. And maybe using treat puzzles for those dogs would be beneficial. And then teaching them the calming behaviors, making sure we have a calming mat and a safe area for those dogs to go to is very important. And if you haven't gone back to work yet and you have a new dog and you're wondering, like, this might not go down so well when I do go back, start doing these things right now, because it'll make a huge difference when you do have to leave your dog. And make sure you're giving them time alone during the day and training them to do that. Okay, so I wanted to show 2 books before we talk about kind of the whole body approach and what it means and how I look at anxiety. So not just separation anxiety, but there's 2 books that if you have a new dog that you're trying to train and get them to do the things that you need them to do, and you're worried that there might be some separation anxiety, or you just have general behavior questions for your dogs, you need to get these books because they're very, very helpful. They're easy to follow. They're made for you in mind. So Dr. Sophia Yin, she is fantastic. Highly, highly, highly recommend any of her stuff. If you have highly reactive dogs, she's got training on her website. So Dr. Sophia Yin. So this is, I'm going to show it to everyone so you can see. So Dr. Sophia Yin, you can see her name at the bottom. And so this is how to behave so your dog behaves. So remember, they're watching us. Like, if we're anxious, your pet's going to be anxious. If we're stressed, your pet will be stressed. We've talked a lot about this. Like, our pets manifest what we are feeling. They are so connected to us. And this is a lot of times where you have diarrhea, your pet has diarrhea. You're stressed, your dog is super stressed. And then all of a sudden we have like allergies, we have other diseases that happen because we didn't manage it. And now it's manifested into a physical condition because there was an imbalance and we didn't treat it. And so when we don't treat those imbalances, they will continue and they will worsen over time. That is a fact. So that's why knowing, like, okay, we're seeing these symptoms, our dog is showing us these mild signs, we need to make sure that we're treating them. Okay, Sherry, great question. When I leave, my dogs will urinate, defecate out of spite. Is that a form of separation anxiety? So they're not spiting you, Sherry. They're actually, that is separation anxiety. And so that's where they don't have to necessarily destroy anything, but I guarantee that your dogs are stressed. So I'd go through some of these things and see, like, am I ticking the boxes in all these areas? Am I allowing them to have that safe zone? Am I meeting all of their needs? Am I doing environmental enrichment? It doesn't mean that we're bad pet parents if we have pets with separation anxiety. It's just there's something that's missing from their daily routine that we need to figure out and adjust so that we can help them be calm. And the last book before I talk about what we can do to help them feel more calm. So Decoding Your Dog. So this is another one. You can see it's actually written by vet behaviorists. So this is a great one because it talks about common dog behaviors and how to like prevent or change unwanted behaviors. It's thick, but it's good. So definitely it talks about like realistic expectations. Like this is really great for any pet parent to have that has a dog, or if you're worried or you just want to learn more about behavior training in general for your dogs, because there's a lot to it. Like it is very complex. It's just like training people. Very complex. There's a lot that goes into it. All right. So when I look at this pet, we have separation anxiety. We have dogs maybe pooping and peeing when we leave. I know sitting here when I'm working in my office in some of the mornings and there's a new puppy across the street and they leave to go to work, I can hear the puppy crying. Like I can hear it across the street. And I'm like, that dog has separation anxiety. Oh my gosh, I wonder if it's destroying their house right now. And so what can we do though? So we have to do the behavior modification. We have to. We can't ignore that because that's a huge piece. With any behavior problem, we can't just like medicate it out of that pet. I mean, yes, we can like medicate them so they're like in a coma where they're not wanting to do anything and they just sit there and they're like, that's not a way for a dog to live though, right? Do you guys agree? Like we don't want to necessarily have to do that because we just took away the life from that pet. And so when I see a dog that has anxiety, so this could be separation anxiety, noise phobias, fear anxieties, other things like that, what I always look at, is there any underlying imbalances? And what I mean, first, I'm going to look at gut health. And I see this in almost every single anxious pet. We have some form of leaky gut, and they may not have diarrhea, they may not be vomiting, but a lot of times there's some degree of inflammation in that GI tract. Maybe they're gassy, maybe they like eating grass, and maybe they get loose stool when they're stressed. So like notice if your pet, dogs and cats are really sensitive to this too. Like if you have a big change, you move house, someone moves in, a kid leaves for college, you get a new job, you're stressed out. So noticing how we feel, so taking notice of that, and your dog gets loose stool, or it's like every time they have some medical issue that pops up every time you get stressed, they have leaky gut. And we need to address that. So if we're feeding our dogs kibble, I'm going to go back to kibble because I always do, right? Dr. Katie goes back to kibble. Not the most ideal diet. And that will create some leaky gut in our pets. So, okay, what do? I have to feed kibble, Katie. Like, okay, so what do I do? We need to look at, do they have good bacteria in their GI system? Are they on a probiotic? Are they on a good probiotic? So we talk a lot about, go back through our blog posts. There are so many blog posts and videos now in our blog posts and also on our YouTube channel at thenaturalpetdoctor.com about GI health. How do we heal leaky gut? What's in our food? What constitutes a good probiotic? Making sure that we have broad spectrum bacterial species in those probiotics. So ensuring that we're getting a good range of the good bacteria we need to put back into the GI tract. And then also making sure there's an adequate amount. Is there over 10 billion CFUs, colony forming units? Most of the time, there's not enough in there to make a difference. So we need to learn how to assess these supplements. Remember, supplements, highly unregulated industry. And so we need to teach ourselves how to assess these supplements, or we end up dumping a ton of money and it doesn't help our pets. So probiotics, if your pet is on kibble, what digestive enzymes are they on? Are you giving digestive enzymes? Most pet parents aren't. If their pet's on a kibble, you have to give digestive enzymes because it's going to help break down the proteins, the fats, and the carbs in that kibble diet so your pet can actually utilize the nutrients. If they're anxious, what else can we do with food? We can use food as medicine. We can use food therapy to help heal leaky gut, to help calm anxiety, to treat conditions. We can use cooling proteins. We can use foods that are cooling if your pet gets overheated or anxious. So looking at adding in those leafy greens, those salad mixes into your pet's diet a couple times a week can help. Using foods that are higher in tryptophan. So turkey, of course, that's why most people get the turkey high after Thanksgiving in the US. It's probably from overeating, but it has higher levels of tryptophan. Is your pet getting enough omega-3 fatty acids? So using things like fish oils, using salmon, so canned salmon, adding in canned sardines, unsalted canned sardines that are wild caught. Please don't use farmed. There's too many chemicals and toxins and all sorts of garbage in that. But looking at food as medicine and addressing whole body health, because we can do behavior modification, but if we're feeding our pet garbage, they're going to feel like garbage, right? How do you feel? Like if you go and you eat cheeseburgers for the entire week, do you feel good at the end of the week? No, you don't, because you fed your body garbage. And so that produces inflammation. You have leaky gut, and it leads to all sorts of issues. So looking at food as medicine, what can we do? I have a blog post, check it out, the top 11 foods to help reduce anxiety. Keeping in mind, this is the disclaimer for that blog post, that this is in addition to those behavior modification techniques. You have to be doing those also. Like those foods, you can add them in, but they're not going to fix your pet alone. Like this is a multimodal approach. And that's where some pets do need extra nutrients. They need conventional medication if they're going to harm themselves. Like I'm not against conventional meds. There is a time and a place for them, but we also need to be looking at these other holistic modalities and integrating them into our treatment plans, or your pet's going to be drugged for the rest of his life. That's just the reality. And I see that all the time. And it's unfortunate because there's so much we can do. Also, one of the other things I do look at, because we're looking at imbalances, this pet is imbalanced. Something is off in its body, and it could be multiple things that are off. And what we want to look at is, okay, is their heart off? Is the kidney function off? Is the bladder off? Are they prone to UTIs? And then what we can do, so when I look at them from a Chinese medicine perspective, is how do we change that? How do I fix that root cause? And that's where I use Chinese herbal medicine. And then what we do is we use a combination of herbs that work synergistically together to help heal that root cause. So let's say we give conventional meds, right? We're using anti-anxiety medications. Those are going to help with if there's serotonin, neurotransmitter imbalances, and some pets have that, just like some people need to be on these medications, and that's okay. But what we're doing with the Chinese herbs is we can address that also, but we're fixing that root cause, that imbalance, so that we can hopefully help your pet feel a lot better and not have to go on those conventional drugs. Sherry, you asked a great question. Can you recommend a good digestive enzyme for kibble diets? Yes, there's a couple. So Optigest is one. There's a lot of good ones, but Optigest is a great one. There's also RX Vitamins is a fantastic brand. You can't go wrong with RX Vitamins. They have RX Zyme. They also have RX Biotics. That's your probiotic. So you could combine those two and just go off of the back of those for your dosing. And you can't go wrong with those. All right, Dottie, great question. Does it seem like a dog with a high prey drive would be more prone to anxiety? 100% yes. And the reason I say that is because with like higher prey drives, a lot of these dogs have higher energy levels. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't meet their needs to get rid of their excess energy in the proper channels. And also, their high prey drive. So what are they stalking cats, or like what? I don't know what constitutes high prey drive for that definition for you, but I would look at, okay, this dog has a lot of energy potentially. So we used to have a husky that didn't do well with our cats growing up, and he had a lot of energy. I used to run him 3 times a day. This is long before my vet school days. It's like high school, college breaks, things like that. And I would run him 3 frickin' times a day. It was the most fit I have ever been. And that dog wanted to go even more. And so that's the biggest thing. Like, we need to make sure we're getting their energy out, maybe using puzzle toys also to work their brain. We also need to be careful if there are other pets in the house with high prey drives to ensure, like, especially if you have cats, like they can kill those cats. That's a reality, unfortunately. So we need to make sure we're getting their energy out in appropriate manners. I wouldn't necessarily say you're drugging them, because that's their personality. So you're taking that personality away from them. Dottie, I think there's a lot of behavior stuff. So we asked if the dog was a stray and probably not treated well by their past owner. There's a lot of different so this is where behavior is so complex. So that's a great question, because a lot of people, like, raise your hand, thumbs up, whatever, like hearts, if you adopted a pet during the pandemic. Like, so many pet parents brought another pet in. Like, I see Jess, I see other people like Ryan. Yeah, we 3 animals during the pandemic. We lost one, and we lost Finn, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where we're at home more, we want the companionship. So there's going to potentially, especially when we adopt or we do rescue pets, there is going to be a whole host potentially of mental health, and I don't want to call it issues, but things we need to look at. So we may be dealing with fear. So fear anxiety is a real thing. And there's ways to deal with fear in terms of behavioral modifications and how you can address those. But that's where we can't necessarily just give a drug and expect it to go away. And I see that a lot, unfortunately, with expectations. And as a vet, we need to set up the expectation that this does not necessarily fix the problem. Yes, see, Dottie, exactly. Like, our vet used Prozac for a few, I'm not sure if that's weeks, to help her adjust, but we weaned her off and she's so much better. So through that adjustment period, allowing her to gain the like confidence that you are a safe environment and safe person. See, that's where drugs can definitely be needed. So a few months, okay, that makes sense. So, and then that's where you can do those behavior modifications, making sure that we're addressing any health concerns, diet issues. Are we treating the gut health appropriately? Like, that's really, really important. Like, gut health is number one for every single disease that I treat, every condition I look at. Preventative medicine. Like, if I never had to treat disease again, this world would be such a better place, because it means that our pets are just optimized through preventative medicine, through their diets, through the environment not being toxic. It's not a reality, but that's the goal, right? So looking at, okay, add your digestive enzymes, add your probiotics, add in those leafy greens, add in real food. Look at, can we get them to a more optimal diet if you can, over time, to a balanced home cooked diet, maybe raw if they do well with raw. Not every pet can handle raw, and there's a transition period. And then also some of the other things that you can use for these new pets. So use the pheromones. We talk a lot about Feel Away in cats. So these are plugins that you can plug into the wall. And rather than, like, if you have Glade plugins, just throw those away or burn them. Like, those are so toxic and create so many health issues. So instead, plug in like Feel Away or Adaptil. The Adaptil is the dog pheromone that helps calm them down. So this is great to put in the room, like their safe room. Where is the calming mat? Okay, the Adaptil is going to go in that room. And what it does is it diffuses out this pheromone that's a calming pheromone for either that dog or cat, depending on what product you're using. We can't smell it, but they can. And I've seen, like, my cats rub against it. Like, it's the coolest thing ever. And it's so easy. And if it doesn't work, okay, there's no harm in using it. And you can spray, like, they have sprays too that you can spray on bandanas. There's so much we can do. And when we have to use a multimodal approach for behavior modification, food, supplements, all sorts of things. So there's definitely a place for everything. Now, the other thing, this is a hot topic right now, and we have a lot of videos. We did a full 60-minute, I think we actually went 90 minutes because I always go over, in our Natural Pet Tribe membership on how to use CBD safely for your pets. So check out our membership if you want to see that video, like the full length video. We do have some blog posts and things to get you started, but CBD definitely has a place for helping anxious pets. Now, it doesn't work for every pet. It's just like anything. Some of the things I tell you may not work for your pet, and CBD could be one of them. And CBD products, there's a lot of products out there that are really bad. And then there's a lot of products that are really good. And some of the companies that I work with or I recommend to clients is Earth Buddy, Vet CS, Hemp My Pet. there's a lot more than that. And those are just 3 that I've used personally, that I've used with clients, and I love them. So I stick with them because they're fantastic and they have great customer service. And the cool thing with Earth Buddy too, is they have other products. So there's a actual colostrum, like hemp product to help your pet's gut health. We're actually giving that away for our webinar if you register this month. And our webinar is all about pet food. So Dottie, like you have a question about like Taste of the Wild and getting conflicting information about food, join our webinar. It's super cheap. And we are gonna go deep into like, what is the best food for your pet? How do we use food as medicine? How do you balance your pet's diet? Like, if you want to do home cooked, what are the best kibbles? Like, we are talking about that in this webinar. So make sure you guys register. It's in our link. It's on our website, thenaturalpetdoctor.com, because you're going to get so many answers. Like, that's why we do those webinars, so that we can go deeper into it. But there's so many different things for anxiety. So definitely check out our blog posts. Make sure you register for that webinar, and go to our YouTube channel. So The Natural Pet Doctor. So Dr. Katie, if you type that in, so many free videos. We're posting 3 times a week, free videos. So subscribe. And definitely we have a private Facebook group too. So The Natural Pet Doctor, join that. Like, there's some amazing people in there that have amazing knowledge about essential oils and other things that I've tried. And that's a safe community where you can ask questions and get help from other pet parents like yourself. So there's so many different avenues that we have. And awesome. This is a great question. Angels for Animals Foundation. Our webinar is recorded for members. So you are in the UK. Yes, time difference. So we have people all over the world that are in our membership, and they're recorded. They are there for life, for as long as you are in the membership. So if you can't make the live, it takes me probably a few days to get it into the membership after the live, but you get access to it to rewatch whenever you want. And there's also PDFs every single month on monthly wellness checks, tips and hints and things that you need to do. So check it out. Like, there's different membership options too. I'd love to see you guys there. It's been really cool interacting with our members and providing extreme value. And we cover different topics. From nutrition's a big one. That's because it's the foundation for health. So we're always talking about nutrition, and there's so many questions from pet parents about what food is best to feed my pets. It's confusing. That's why we talk a lot about it. But we also talk about natural remedies for cancer prevention, cancer treatment, CBD, because that's a topic that's not covered and vets are afraid to talk about it. And we need to tell pet parents how to use things, what doses, how to use it safely, how to analyze that product so you know you're giving a quality product to your pet. Those are in there. Allergies. Who here has an itchy pet? Oh my gosh. Like, and what I find too, so I'll bring it back to a whole anxiety issue, these pets are anxious. They're itchy, they're inflamed, their bodies are off. And that inflammation leads to itchiness, leads to anxiety, leads to other conditions. So we talk a lot about allergies also in our membership too, because it's a common problem. Diarrhea, we talk about kidney disease, we just covered, essential oils. So we talk about, so Dottie, you talked about weight management for older dogs. That's in our membership. We have we also have a wellness course that's part of our annual membership. And it covers puppies, kittens to seniors. And it covers how to analyze body condition score, what you need to be looking for in your senior pets. And we did a whole entire webinar on managing your senior pets. So there's so many different topics. And that's what I love about being able to provide this to you guys. Next week at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So we do these every week, our coffee talk with the doc. We're going to be talking about how to raise, I believe this is correct, but how to raise your I think it's your kitten or your puppy, kitten, both holistically. So how do you start from the very beginning to set your animal up for like I get goosebumps because this is why I created the wellness course. If I could go back and change, if you've been following me, you know about Finn. So Finn passed away recently. He was almost 12-year-old German Shepherd, and he had a brain tumor. And he was raised traditionally. Like, I was in vet school when I got him, and I did the things that I thought were right. Like, I didn't know any better. So he was on kibble. He got all his vaccines. He got his monthly like flea and tick stuff. Like, Oh my gosh, knowing what I know now would be very different raising baby Finn. And I talk a lot about that. It's why I create a lot of the content that I do, because I want pet parents to be better informed than I was when I had baby Finn. And maybe he wouldn't have developed a brain tumor. Like, that's hard saying that, but that's reality. And I don't want other pet parents to go down the path of having pets with cancer like I've had. Cancer sucks. It's really hard. And so it's really important to talk about the preventative care piece, because once they develop something like that, yes, there's a lot we can do. And, you know, Finn gained 10 more months of life because I was lucky enough to know the holistic side of medicine. Otherwise, he would have been gone. He didn't do well on conventional meds. He would have been dead in a week because of side effects of the meds. And, you know, if we can prevent pets from getting these diseases, diabetes, Cushing's, cancer, osteoarthritis, you know, splenic tumors. There's so much we can do so we can help them. So Angels for Animals, there are so few holistic vets in the UK. The British Veterinary Association are so against it. So we have to look to the USA holistic vets for guidance. It's the same here. I mean, we have more holistic vets, which is great. So the AHVMA is a great organization, but vets are against what I do all the time. And that's okay. Like, they just haven't learned yet. That's how I look at it. They're uninformed supporters. They haven't learned what I do yet. So they haven't been able to see pets that have been helped. And that's my mission. That's my goal. Like, they'll see, and then they'll have to learn and believe. And when pet parents are asking for more of that and they're leaving clinics because they're not receiving that, people will have to wake up. It's a fact. It just takes a long time and it's a hard process. But don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. You're going to keep getting all your content. So your parents' dog recently died of cancer. I'm sorry to hear that, Angel. CBD helped him in his last days, and their vet didn't even recommend it. So we can't prescribe it. We can talk about harm reduction. So bring it up to your vet, because then it opens up the conversation for CBD. So it's definitely something where your vet may not feel comfortable because of the legality reasons. So there's other blockers in place. It's like the rabies vaccine. Like, I don't want to give it every 3 years. And I don't do vaccines, but I work with vets that have to give it. And unfortunately, like, it's a requirement. They don't accept titers. So there's got to be changes that happen, but that's the same with CBD. So it definitely can help shape up your pup, can help with dog reactivity a little bit, but we need to do those behavior modifications in the training also for dog reactivity. So we need to do that multimodal approach. So it may bring them down like a level, make them feel more calm, but then you'd have to work on like desensitizing them to other dogs. Let's see. Dottie, can too many parvo vaccines make a dog more prone to cancer? It's a great question. And it's a question I get almost every single day. And the thing with vaccines is that if we over-vaccinate our pets, yes, we are overstimulating the immune system, which can lead to autoimmune diseases and cancer. Now, we can't directly say that because there's not a lot of studies that directly show a causation. However, it happens. That's why parvo, you can titer the heck out of that one. So your pet should only be getting that one every 3 years anyway. So if your vet is giving your dog a parvo vaccine every single year, they're over vaccinating your dog. They should be doing every 3-year protocol. That's actually the recommendation now. But they also, and this is becoming more common and something that you can ask for as a pet parent, ask for the titer, ask for your parvo and distemper titers, so that those are typically combined together. So parvo and distemper, they're combined in like one vaccine, but the titers are two separate. So you want to ask parvo, distemper, titers. You want to do that if your pet comes back with antibodies, so their titer is positive. That's a good thing. And you can go every 3 years with those titers. So that's a great way to make sure your pet is protected and that you don't need to be giving those vaccines. And those vaccines are not required by law, like the rabies one. So definitely ask your vet about that. So that's the thing, like, the more education you have. I talked to an amazing pet parent yesterday. She has a cat that has some kidney issues, potentially. Like, it's an interesting case. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many imbalances and they can't give a name to it. I was like, this is perfect for herbal medicine. Like, I don't want a name, because that means the symptoms have turned into like something we can give a name to. But if we resolve the underlying imbalance, which we can with herbal medicine, I don't need a name. I just know them, like the pathways, like there's stagnation here, there's blood deficiency. So these are all Chinese medicine terms that I can see based on symptoms and like how your pet's like behaving. And then we can use herbs to help resolve it. And unfortunately, like, she's come up against huge resistance. Like, all they wanted to do is put her cat on this dry prescription diet. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you informed yourself and knew not to do that and kept looking. That's the thing. Like, don't just settle. Like, you don't have to settle for your pet. There are other options out there, and it's hard sometimes. It's just like, for people, finding a doctor to work with you from a holistic perspective can be really hard to find. And so that can be it is the way with vets typically. So definitely stand up for your pet's health. If your pet has separation anxiety, go through the pathways that we talked about today to look at, okay, are we doing environmental enrichment? Are we creating that daily routine? Let's add in some of those supplements. So probiotics, digestive enzymes, looking at potentially using CBD. If your pet's on other drugs or medications, you need to make sure that that CBD is not going to interact adversely. Looking at foods. So check out our membership, the Natural Pet Tribe. And then just go to our website. There's our blog link. You'll see our link for our membership there also. So thenaturalpetdoctor.com. And come back next week when we talk about how to start those puppies and those kittens off right from a holistic standpoint. Yes, we will be talking about vaccines, what I recommend for them. And then, yes, that's great. Thank you, Sherry, reminding me. These 2 books that I highly recommend getting. So Decoding Your Dog, and that's made by vet behaviorists. And then also Sophia Yin, check her out. So someone, I can't remember who mentioned reactive dogs, check out Sophia Yin, because she has an entire training course on how to help your pet not be reactive. And like, she's incredible. She was an incredible human. So How to Behave So Your Dog Behaves by Dr. Sophia Yin. And definitely, like, Sophia Yin, hands down, any of her stuff. I did her fear-free course, and it was incredible. I learned how to like towel wrap a cat like 15 different ways without them getting stressed. Like, it's incredible. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I appreciate you once again for showing up on a Saturday morning and asking the questions. Check out our website, thenaturalpetdoctor.com. Make sure you like us, follow us, Facebook, Instagram, and definitely join our Natural Pet Tribe. I'd love to see you guys there, and have a fantastic weekend. Thanks so much.